Hello and welcome to another thrilling episode of Film Expert versus Film Noob. I'm Chewy,
And I'm Cat.
and today we're talking about Annette.
Yes.
Oh boy, I am really excited to talk about this film. And it's the funny thing is that we were kind of trying to find a movie, and we kind of threw up our hands and oh, maybe this one. And we chose Annette. And I didn't realize when I chose this movie that we actually are more familiar with some of the people involved. But just to start, Annette is a film directed by Carax. He's a French director. And he is known for a movie called Holy Motors, but that came out in 2012. So it's been a while since he's had a new movie. Apparently, he kind of got to start with this film called Boy Meets Girl, but that was in 1984. So he hasn't really been making movies lately, and people have always told me he's a good director. I've heard his name, I've heard about him, I've heard of him. But Annette, what is Annette? Annette is a musical directed by Leos Carax, but the music and the story, or the screenplay, was written by the Sparks Brothers. And if you don't know who the Sparks Brothers are, you raised your hand.
I want to talk about the Sparks
You
Brothers.
do. Well, this is I'm glad you do, because this is kind of what the interesting story is that we watched the documentary about them that came out in June or whatever it was, and it was famously directed by Edgar Wright, one of our favorite directors. And we always intentionally wanted to do an episode about it, but
What happened is that we realized that we didn't connect as much to the Sparks Brothers documentary as we wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because it was our first introduction to them.
yes, they are such a strange but prolific band.
Yeah, and what they say is that is their favorite band's favorite band.
Yeah, like the bands you love know about them, but no one else does.
Yeah, so they're like so big in the world of music
Yeah.
between musicians,
Yes.
but normal people usually don't hear about them. And it's so weird because throughout the whole documentary, I was thinking like, yeah, they're amazing and their songs are great. And I kept waiting for a song that I recognize.
Yeah.
I kept waiting and waiting to listen to a song like, yeah, of course I have listened to that
Yeah, I know.
song.
We were watching the documentary and we're waiting for this is I'm using this example for exaggeration, but we're waiting for like Here Comes the Sun and us to go, "Oh my god, the Sparks Brothers actually wrote that." We're waiting for something like that.
Yeah, I was waiting for that like realization of like, I know who they are. I
Yeah.
just didn't knew. Nope.
Not a
I-
single song we
I
recognized.
don't know who they are.
We had no idea.
So, although I recognized how big they are, and I am so happy that we now know who they are because they are so amazing,
They are so amazing.
that watching this movie brought me closer to them.
Right.
Although it's not like now I am a fan all of the sudden. I do know how to recognize talent, and I like giving it the respect it deserves. So the Sparks Brothers are that for me. I really like putting people in pedestals when they deserve to, and they do. But this was our first time actually seeing something from them.
Yeah, this
after
was like
knowing them.
this is our first real experience of
Yeah.
listening to their music or
Mhm.
seeing like what their artistic sensibilities are. And because the documentary kind of tells you all that, but like it doesn't really feature their music in the sense of being like, oh, and here's their hit song, and you go, okay, yeah, there's that one, I know that one. Obviously, like you were saying, we had no connection to any of their music, so this is the first time we really get to listen or see what they're capable of, because we were told in this documentary that they were capable and amazing and all this stuff, but now we get to see it. And for everyone out there who doesn't know who they are, just to try to explain their musical sensibilities, even the tiniest bit, is very difficult. But what I'll say is, it's like take like Euro electronic pop, mix that with kind of orchestra and then rock and roll. Like, they have a strange combination of all those things, but the point is their artistic integrity is ironclad. In this documentary, and from watching this film, I can see they have such a clear artistic vision, and they are unwavering. You cannot convince them otherwise. Because this movie is really weird. It's really strange. But at the same time, it's very easy to understand. It's very easy to follow. And the metaphors are simple. And not to say that they're bad, but they so clearly know what they're trying to say.
Yeah, with their music, you can clearly tell that they never suffered trying to impress an audience. If they suffered while making their music or got stressed about something, is trying to make themselves happy.
Yeah,
you
they're
know?
uncompromising in the best ways.
It's like they know how good they are, and they created music that is amazing, but it wasn't, they never sold out. That's the thing.
They are the band out of time, because everything they made, it was just before the thing blew up in the popular level, but they just got to it first, and then they moved on because they made their music, and then they move on to the next thing they want to try. So they always were just slightly ahead of trends, but never went back to them, which is like so commendable.
Exactly. So you can take everything, like the best of the Beatles, the best of the Bee Gees, the best of
I would say Pink
Queen,
Floyd,
whatever, the best of every single band, and that's the music they created. It's so weird because they did everything and they did it perfectly. It's just they never cared about the audience.
They never cared.
Yeah, they cared about the music, the art, and believing in themselves.
Yep.
And they are happy. That's the thing. They're happy.
They're extremely happy people. And to that point, let's just jump straight into this film, because so just like The Green Knight, this is going to be a more difficult film to talk about because it's a very metaphorical film. It's also not a what you're seeing is what you get.
So I do recommend anyone to watch the documentary about the Sparks brothers before watching this movie.
Yeah, you get a lot of insight into what they're trying to do with this movie just because you are familiar with who they are.
And also you will enjoy a lot of inside jokes.
Totally.
And only will understand them because you watch the documentary or because you're a Sparks Brother fan.
Yeah.
And it's really nice. It's a really kind of like a hug feeling. It's kind of like, you know, you just have that inside joke with your friend.
Yeah.
And it just makes you feel important.
Yes.
Or makes you feel like welcomed.
Yes,
and
I was going to say, they are very welcoming.
Yeah, their movie is really welcoming. And I think their music the same. So I recommend watching the documentary so you can also experience that from the movie.
Totally. I don't want to go on about the Sparks Brothers any longer than I need to. That doesn't have to do with this movie because, oh boy, there's a lot to talk about. So we might as well just jump straight into this and try to... It's difficult to talk about this movie in the terms of what chronologically happens because much like The Green Knight, it's very interpretive. What you're seeing at is layered in metaphor, or there's a meaning behind it. And I'm not saying it's too complicated, but that's the attempt. So let me just try to take you guys on a really quick synopsis through what happens in this movie. So the movie stars Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard. They are a couple. Adam Driver's character's name is Henry, and Marion's character's name is Anne. Henry is a famous comedian that falls in love with Anne, who is a world-famous opera singer, and everything seems great. It's all going well. She eventually gets pregnant. They have a daughter. The daughter's name is Annette. Woo, the title of the film. But the thing is, Anne starts becoming more famous than Henry, and her rise in star power starts to put him a little bit down in the dumps. Depression takes over him. He becomes an alcoholic. And in an attempt to try to get away from it all, they go on a boating trip. And while he's drunk, she falls off the boat and drowns. And then the second half of the movie is him as a single dad taking care of his daughter, but his daughter starts exhibiting talents like her mother, and she can sing opera essentially. And then the second half of the movie is him exploiting his daughter for profit and exposure to kind of get back into the limelight. And then all his consequences catch up to him, and he ends up in jail. And it ends. And his daughter's like, it's over. So it kind of sounds crazy when you explain it like that. Because the movie is what I would call like the last bastion of like very classical style movie musicals, in the sense that it is back to front, front to back music. I would say in terms of actual just talking dialogue, it's very rare that people actually just talk to each other in this movie.
Did they ever talk to each other?
They're always singing to each other, right?
I didn't realize that.
There's always music. They're always singing. So, like I said, that's the plot of what happens. So imagine that every song is the dialogue that would explain all those scenes that I've just set up. So immediately, you're met with this crazy intro with a lot of musical feedback going on, and the screen is literally flickering between a black frame and then the frame of whatever they're showing you. So they're trying to introduce the venue, and like the venue flickers in, and then it cuts to all the musicians, and they're testing their instruments, and as they're strumming or hitting the drums, it's the electrical hum of all the instruments being plugged in, them testing them. So immediately you're met with this very experimental opening. So you're like, okay, what is this movie? Suddenly you realize you're in a recording studio with the Sparks Brothers, and then they start singing, and they sing what is essentially the narrators introing the movie by explaining it in a very Shakespearean way, like, welcome to this tale of woe for our sweet Juliet and her Romeo. Like, they do that kind of thing where they explain that it's going to be a tale of like kind of love and loss and whatever, and they kind of sing their way through it, and they walk through the streets, and then they go out of the studio, and then Adam Driver comes out, and they're all walking down the street, and they start singing the intro to the song, and it's very obviously like a classical musical opening. We're going to sing. Here's the cast. They're joining us in the choir. Everyone's singing. And then at the end of that musical number, they're kind of like, on with the show. We're going to start. Now we're going to sing with the show. And they have very literal lyrics, and it gets kind of hilarious. But after that opening, you're just kind of like, whoa, okay. That's what I got to prepare myself for.
So it all comes back to what I keep saying, that in the first 5 minutes, you can say if you're gonna like a movie or not.
Totally.
That never fails. So I do feel that their first 5 minutes, the same as the rest of the movie, prepares you for the next thing.
Yeah, it's the energy of everything is so high, and yeah, you're just ready.
But that's the thing. Every scene of the movie spoils you the next scene of the movie.
Yes, because they sing about what's going to happen next, essentially.
And there's a lot of foreshadowing, a lot of things that you just know, like, you don't even need to be like that smart to know what's coming. When
I said like classical, musical, or I bring up Shakespeare, it's literally like all the language they use in a Shakespearean play where they talk to the audience and they have a soliloquy, or, the characters will literally be singing or talking about the foreboding that is soon coming. Like, the movie does that constantly. Like, here comes the storm, there's a storm coming. Like, the music will be playing saying a storm is coming. And then the next scene, there's a storm. And then foreboding things happen, and there's like tension, or you'll have a musical that's just we love each other so very much, and it's the same line over and over again to emphasize that you're introducing the romance of the characters. Like, it does very weird things like that.
Well, I don't find them weird. I find them really
irregular, unconventional.
Yeah, I don't think it's weird, but that's one thing I really like and respect about this movie, that I feel that a lot of writers or directors or whoever is doing the movie, I still don't understand who is making movies or who is the producer. I have no idea. Every time is someone else is in charge of the movie, so I have no idea. But I feel like, and although I don't watch that many movies, so I don't really have a lot of examples, but from the movies I have watched throughout my life, I feel that a lot of directors feel pressure to make their movies suspenseful.
And unpredictable.
and unpredictable, which is nice. It's nice to sometimes have a plot twist, but I feel that at some point it became a rule, or it became so mainstream that you will always expect a plot twist, and everything gets boring with time.
Well, and you know what? To that point, that's such a great observation, because I would argue the same thing. The reason why I use the term weird, but what I meant was irregular or uncommon, is because, yes, you do not get movies nowadays that will literally tell you what the character is feeling and explain their backstory in a song and then just be like, well, that's how we introduced them. We're moving on. Like, they don't see it as a problem in this movie. They just go, here's the character. He gets a fun, high-energy song. The songs are what gives the character's personality, right?
It's amazing how they're not afraid of revealing the movie, because I kind of feel that around 20 or 30 minutes in, once we get introduced to all of the characters properly, I already know how the movie will go.
Well, they also already told us.
Yeah. It's kind of, they told us, you already know. And there are a lot of cliches, but not.
They are intentionally used.
It's intentionally used. It's not like, oh, another cliche. No, they're intentionally used. And I really respect that they trust their art so much, and they trust that what they were trying to tell is just a story in a musical talking about life scenarios, that they weren't afraid of spoiling their own movie. And I really love that.
Because, it doesn't take away from still being able to watch all those incredible performances, the music, the singing, like all that stuff is part of the fun. So just like in an actual play, I'm telling you what's going to happen. But the thing is, you want to see it. And they know you want to see it.
And that's what happened when we saw Hamilton, the Disney.
Right. Yeah. We saw the recording. Yeah.
Yeah. He stands there. I am the guy who's gonna kill Hamilton.
That's
I'm
right.
like, what? I
Yeah.
didn't even knew. I don't know American history. That would have been a plot twist for me. But they don't care. They just say it. So it's totally like a play. But I don't know anything about plays. So.
And that's the thing. I also am no expert on plays. That I can definitely say. But what I am an expert on is film. And film has been trying to marry the play world and the movie world forever. And the reason why it's usually not accomplished is because they try too hard to take the stage elements out and adapt them into film, or they try too hard to adapt film into the stage elements. Whereas this movie goes, fuck all of that. The whole thing's a stage. Everything's artificial. There's nothing in this movie that tries to make you immersed beyond what's actually happening.
Yeah.
They do not go, oh, these characters are real. Like I said, the whole thing's artificial. The opening is them all coming out from randomly out of nowhere on the street while they're walking. So they're clearly showing you that we're in the real world, but everything's still fake. Like, after their baby gets born, there's a huge metaphor that we'll get into later, but it is literally a puppet. Like a marionette doll. So obviously, you have expectations when you watch movies. Movies are supposed to be reality. And that's what I love about this movie, is this movie goes, that is some new invention that is not the truth about film. People think film needs to be like reality, whereas film was never reality. Film was always the impression of reality. And this movie does everything it can to focus on the impressions of a character, focus on what a character's impression of the world is. So everything seems like a stage play. Everything has all that fakeness because it actually mirrors our main character, or the main point of view, his mental state, Adam Driver's character, right?
And it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Like,
at the end of the day.
that's the beauty of it, that it doesn't matter that part of the movie is real. It's a real scene. The other one, it's clearly like kind of staged, kind of weird. They're using like lights to create stuff that are not there.
Yeah, it's very obviously more surreal.
More like a theater, Like they use theater props to like create a scene.
Absolutely.
And you're like, well, wasn't that supposed to be real life? What is this? But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And that's what's beautiful about this film.
Yeah.
It's not about it's weird. It's not about the film. It's about The film?
It's kind of more like you take each individual moment as it is
Yeah.
rather than how it all fits together, because again, the Sparks brothers are not afraid of telling you what their metaphor is. In every scene they go, this is this. And we'll get into that I think in
Yeah.
a second, but they just go, this means that. And you're not left wondering what it means. You just go, oh, okay. Well, if the metaphor of this scene is that maybe the two characters aren't connecting as well as they should, it's only because then when we have a scene where they are connecting and they're singing some other crazy thing, we compare the two, and the contrast is what makes us understand how all the pieces fit together. So, I mean, without further ado, I think this is kind of where we jump in. I think the easiest place to jump in is just with the opening, I guess the proper opening now, where they get into the movie proper, and it starts with Adam Driver as Henry McHenry getting ready for what we assume is maybe a boxing match. I don't know. He's shadow boxing in the corner doing a thing. And then at the same time, it's intercut with Anne, the other character, who is an opera singer. And she's like doing vocal warm-ups and getting ready and like all that stuff. And it's intercut the two of them getting ready. The reveal with Adam Driver is that it's actually a comedy show. He gets out on the stage like, oh, it's a comedy show. How exciting. And from the scene itself, you get the impression that the Sparks brothers are trying to like talk about, I guess, this special type of comedians, like the Bo Burnhams or the Pete Davidsons, like the kind of self-loathing comedians. It clearly in their minds is like a kind of a very exploitative thing. So like this Adam Driver is, you know, making his jokes and everyone's laughing hysterically. So
adding to the point of the Sparks brothers having a negative view of this type of comedy,
yeah,
I do have a couple of opinions I want to talk about later.
right.
Because the comedy special does come back.
Yes.
So I think we have to explain that first before I do my commentary about this topic.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we'll get to that. So once we get to, I guess, what the payoff of the comedy show is, we'll talk about it more there. Suffice it to say that, yeah, you get a bunch of negative impressions from the show, but the main thing you get is that he's famous. Like, he is a big deal. Everyone loves his comedy show. It's offensive, but people love it. You also get that same impression from Anne, that she's this very elegant and very successful opera singer, probably even more famous than Adam Driver's character.
Way more famous.
Most likely.
Like she's world famous and he is
he's like American
fame.
fame. Exactly. Like that's the impression you get. So her show ends, roarious applause. His show ends, roarious applause. Everyone's excited. She's outside. Paparazzi's love her. They're taking pictures. He's going to go pick her up and they're going to go off on a date together or whatever. He picks her up and we get an interaction that kind of impresses upon us that Adam Driver his character is very disdainful towards, I guess, the spotlight. He's kind of hiding himself. He has a motorcycle mask on. He's kind of keeping the visor down. But he goes there, picks her up. It's a big thing. All the paparazzis are in love.
And there's a scandal.
And there's a scandal. Ooh, the paparazzis love it. And they sing like a little song. And then they ride off into the night. And they go to a shared home. What is it, a cottage?
I think that's it. I think
Yeah,
it ends with the news.
Yeah, they do a little bit of like an Hollywood Entertainment expose thing. Like they use that tool a lot in the movie to try and like show passage of time. So that happens.
And after that, it comes to them walking in a park.
Yes.
Singing how much they love each other.
But not only that, it's them literally singing the same line over and over again, which is, we love each other so much. We love each other so much. Like, it's just them singing that over and over and over. And you're kind of like, okay, this is interesting. After the extended We Love Each Other song, and then it just goes explicit scenes of them loving each other, because they do.
Yeah.
We get another, I guess, kind of like a time skip thing. She's pregnant. And then we kind of get a bit of a montage of his downward spiral. He's being affected by her spotlight outshining him a little bit. You see that he's kind of drinking a bit more. And then the first big milestone in the film is they give birth to their child. their child who, as I mentioned, is literally a puppet.
But not only that, when she's giving birth, he's the one who is suffering more.
Oh yeah, he's like sweating so
Yeah,
much.
and he even asked the doctor, "Doctor, am I doing well?"
Yeah. And then she laughs at him.
She laughs because
And
it's
laughs.
stupid.
No, but the funny thing about that, it's stupid, but you see in that scene that already how he values himself. Because once he sees that she
Yeah.
starts laughing, he's like, oh, that's my thing. And then proceeds to keep making jokes. But it's kind of like the first little moment where you start to think to yourself, maybe there's something wrong with this guy.
Yeah, because that's, I think, the first glimpse of he cares more about himself than about his wife.
Yeah, and you kind of can get the sense of the fragility of his ego in that scene.
And it's like, it's funny because,
Obviously, it's like a very dramatic scene.
yes, and for me, it's funny because maybe after watching a lot of TikToks about bad parenting, it kind of seems to be the norm of shitty dads being more self-centered
Right.
than good dads.
Right. So you're saying you kind of saw that and you were like, red flag.
Red flag, yeah, because all those stories I have heard of TikTok about, like, oh yeah, while I was giving birth, he was like more worried about his football match or whatever. And yeah, that scene was like, and I told you, like, oh, men are so weak.
Yeah.
But it's not like he's weak. He was way worse.
Right. Well, that was the funny thing was that you made that joke, but we didn't realize obviously how much further that would snowball.
It snowballed, yeah.
It snowballed, yeah. And it kind of so it's kind of like the movie's almost in two halves. There is what we've explained up until now. So there's before the baby and then there's after the baby. There is like such a major change in the tone of the film. There's a major change in kind of everything because not long after this baby is born, we get a scene in which Adam Driver's Henry McHenry is singing to his newborn daughter in like a very like possessive way, like you're mine, you're my thing. Like it's the language he uses and like the performance is very much like I have now given birth to a thing that I own.
And I'm gonna use.
And I'm gonna use it. And that's when we kind of go, ooh, uh-oh. I get the feeling something's about to shift in this film.
Hence why the daughter is a puppet.
Literally represented as a doll
Like,
with joints, ball
yeah.
joints. Like, it's an actual marionette.
And as soon as that happens, in my opinion, I knew exactly how the film will end.
Well, because as soon as you see that,
Yeah.
everything starts to come together.
Yeah,
You go, every metaphor,
Yeah.
I get it. When you see that puppet, it's almost like the language of the film clicks.
Exactly. It's like
You go, they used a literal puppet. Now I know that nothing is necessarily real.
Yes.
Everything is his impression.
yes.
Essentially, this is the twist where we learn the movie's from Adam Driver's perspective.
Oh, I guess it
Well,
is.
it's not even the twist, it's more a confirmation.
But also it's how, like, in the first quarter of the movie, they introduce you how you have to understand the movie.
Yes.
And it also, well, honestly, after that, I don't know, I already knew how the story will go.
Yes, they foreshadow a lot.
Yeah, foreshadowing and also just life experience, just tales, YouTube
Yeah,
videos. It's
yeah.
kind of story that has happened
Yeah.
many times
you don't
already.
look at this couple and go, oh, this is going to end great. You go,
No. So now that we revealed that Henry McHenry,
Henry McHenry, I know, what a name.
it's not who we thought he was.
He's not as amazing as the whole first bit of the movie led us to believe.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't love each other so much.
Yes. And
Oh,
I
no.
want to now that we spoiled that for you.
That's the big reveal is when we learn.
For now. The big reveal for
One
now.
of the bigger reveals is, yes, we've now learned the true intentions of one of our main characters.
Yes. I want to go back to the whole comedian type.
Right. And this is interesting that you bring that up because the overarching, I guess, branch of his descent is bookended by a comedy show, right? There's the comedy show at the beginning, which is the beginning of his journey. Then there's the comedy show that happens later, which is the back end of his career, which is only like maybe slightly over halfway through the film. So we know there's still plenty more of the movie. But he's bookended by those two shows. And one of them is obviously the one that lied to us and told us, oh, he's a really cool guy, whatever. It's his anti-humor thing. And then the second one is the super revealing one.
I just want to comment about how the Sparks brother view this type of comedy. And I'm here to defend it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Because, right. Like I said, they clearly have a very... I wouldn't say it's a disrespect, but it's clearly not their bag. They do not appreciate it.
And I see their point, and I, to an extent, agree with them in the sense that I don't think that every comedian, or not even comedian, let's say every person who uses self-deprecating humor, it's not bad. And at the same time, some people do hide their bad intentions through self-deprecating humor.
It can go both ways.
It can go both ways. I can totally see how maybe a most positive way of seeing the world, and maybe even healthier way of seeing the world, would be not using that type of humor, because you're either hurting others or you're hurting yourself with it.
Right.
You're either constantly reminding you that you suck, or you constantly telling people that you suck, and then people pity you and suffer because of you.
Yeah, or I guess in the example of this movie, it reinforces the negative things he feels about himself. He gets validation through negativity.
Exactly. So the easiest ways I can explain my point is that if you're more of like an empath, like
an empathetic person,
and you use this type of humor, is because you have self-esteem issues, and who you will end up hurting is yourself.
Right.
And if you're a sociopath and have no feelings toward others, who you will end up hurting is the people around you.
Right.
So because we now know what type of person Henry is,
yes,
he will end up hurting people around him.
Yes.
I understand why the Sparks brothers see it as a negative, because they're really positive individuals.
And honestly, it feels like they maybe got burned by someone like that in their past.
Yes.
Because as we learned from their documentary, they were kind of routinely screwed over in a lot of ways. So maybe they have some animosity there. Maybe that's where that comes from. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's personal.
Yeah. Maybe it is personal. But the point being, but now that we've revealed Adam Driver's kind of mental state, Henry McHenry, the famous Henry McHenry, I'll mention also, too, I didn't mention it when I was kind of explaining up until the baby's being born. He's like restless. He can't sleep at night. He does this really interesting thing where he can't sleep in bed, but then sits up and then always kind of like gently strokes Anne, like
the baby,
on the arm.
the belly.
Yeah, the belly or the baby, the arm. Like, so clearly he's obsessing over it.
But he's obsessed over himself.
That's right.
Because she's sleeping. She's the mother. She's
But
fine.
This is what I was going to say. We don't know that yet. At that point, we're like, wow, he really cares.
He's such a good dad.
And then she's born, and then obviously we got the possession song. But yeah, like when that shift happens, everything that follows after, you're just kind of like, now I'm just watching a downward spiral. Because I also need to mention really quickly before we move on about another character that we glossed over called the accompanist.
Howard Wolowitz.
Howard Wolowitz from The Big Bang Theory, or as I like to know him, Simon Helberg. After the introduction of We Love Each Other So Much, and kind of during that middle period when it's like them in love and it's so great, we cut to the accompanist of Anne's character. So for those of you who don't know, in stage performance and stage plays and whatever, there is always someone on the piano called the accompanist who essentially controls the pace of everything. They are the one that essentially freestyles or does whatever to make the music fit with what the actors are doing. So they're literally reacting to if the actors take a pause, then you take an extra breath, he'll kind of like draw things out a little bit. So he is essentially the pinnacle of technical skill. And funnily enough, in his song is, I'm the accompanist. I'm the accompanist. I have technical skill. Like he literally sings and introduces who he is by saying, I'm this. This is what I'm good at. I watch everyone else from afar and I long to be in the spotlight. Is this what his little song is? So you kind of like, okay, so we got this guy introduced. And the other thing we know is that he's in love with Anne. He says he watches from afar and always la 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 la. So at this point, we think there's an element of a character that maybe might come between Adam Driver and Marion's characters, but instead he comes back and plays a greater role. And when that happens, I will bring it up.
And Chewy unfairly called him a simp.
Well,
I, as a woman,
it was a joke.
know how to understand the difference between a simp and a nice guy. And he is a nice guy. Not a nice guy in the bad sense.
Not a Reddit nice guy.
No, not a Reddit nice guy. An actual good guy.
Yes.
And I was pissed.
No, but that's the funny thing is that the movie, I'm not saying they portray him as a villain, but when they show you him, it's at a time when you're kind of like, oh, everything's going great for that couple.
Exactly.
Then they show you him, and then you go, in your monkey brain, because you watch movies, you go, oh, well, they're introducing him because he's got to somehow get in the way. And it's just like, nope.
No.
They did that to fuck with you.
But that's really interesting on how it's always about context.
Yep.
Like, if your husband is shitty and someone is getting on the way of their relationship, he's the superhero.
He's a hero.
But if you have a good relationship and someone is getting in your relationship, he is a bad guy.
Yeah, like, so the movie, you're right. It does that intentionally to mess with you, because then when you get the reveal later about Adam Driver, you're like, oh, God, okay, that guy is not what I thought he was. Maybe that guy is the hero. Maybe he's exactly what Anne needs.
And he was.
And he was. But unfortunately, the next big thing that happens in this movie is that they're trying, like, okay, so Henry McHenry and Anne are trying to get away from the paparazzis and stuff. The stress of all that is putting pressure on him, and obviously he's been slipping into his alcoholism. And then on the news, Anne sees what is like, I think it's like 6 or 7 women on the news proclaiming, Henry McHenry's an abuser. I used to date him. He's this horrible person. They're essentially saying he's a Harvey Weinstein. Yeah. And so you're shocked. And Anne's shocked. She can't believe it. She doesn't know if she can believe it. And she's tortured by this. She's fearing for her life. She has a dream that she feels like she's gonna like run her over, like whatever. She is just completely overcome.
Yeah, and that's like, that really resonated with me, because it's really hard for women to admit to themselves that they maybe chose wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And even harder to realize that everything they believed about the person is a lie.
Totally.
So, of course, how hard it is to believe that this man is so amazing with you.
Mm-hmm.
And he just have some issues. Everyone has issues.
Yeah.
But then you see 6 women calling him an abuser,
Mm-hmm.
and that he's violent, and that they're literally scared for Anne.
Yeah, they do say that. I fear for Anne and that child.
It's like 2 ideas colliding with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's your personal experience versus the world screaming at you, this is wrong.
Yeah.
So hard.
So that happens, and the pressure is mounting. And then we get to the second comedy show, which is what you were bringing up earlier. This is essentially the tell-all. This is the ultimate foreshadowing in the middle of the movie for the rest of the movie. Yeah. And it starts with Adam Driver doing his comedy set. And this is where I think I really want to go into detail. We're going to actually explain the comedy show, because he does the same thing at the beginning in both shows, but they both play out the tail end of completely differently. So his comedy show starts, and he's supposed to walk out through some smoke that's coming down, and he makes a joke coughing about it, being like, oh, he looks weak and enfeebled. And in the first show, he's really playing up that he's got a limp. He's just kind of like a gross homebody, whatever. The second show, after everything is kind of like, you know, the pressure's been on, he's just dropped the shtick entirely. So you already see the difference. In his original show, he tries to disarm the audience by looking weak and pathetic so that he can say whatever he wants. And to your point about him being a sociopath, there's a very common sociopathic tactic. So...
Wait.
What?
That means that he even reveals himself at the beginning of the movie.
You just don't
but
realize
we're just dumb.
We don't know.
We don't know. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I just realized that.
Yes. So now that that's gone, we're like, okay, well, that's interesting. And in his normal show, what he would do is he starts into his typical, like, oh man, I'm such a piece of shit. I'm a fucking loser. Like, the comedy is literally not good. It's funny how bad it is. And like we said about the Sparks Brothers, I think it's intentionally bad because they don't like it.
Intentionally bad.
They don't like the humor.
It's all the cliches about self-deprecating humor.
Yeah.
Doing like it's like they're so bad, but the audience is laughing.
Yeah, the audience is laughing hysterically. And Adam Driver's performance is great. It's not like he's a bad comedian. It's that the jokes are clearly written bad.
Yeah, his performance is great throughout.
Yes.
Like, it's not about that. It's like, it's intentional.
Yeah. So, and then you see that they're starting to deviate immediately because he's not doing his show anymore. He's actually talking. As the audience, we know what he's talking about because we've seen that he's been stressed about the baby. He's stressed about Anne. He's stressed about all these things. We just heard on the news about all those women coming out. So he starts and just wants to break, I guess, the artifice. This is one of those few moments where we're really seeing what he actually believes.
And he mentions that love makes him suffer.
It makes him sick.
It makes him sick.
He says, love makes me sick.
And he doesn't want to be sick anymore.
And he doesn't want to be sick anymore. And he tells the story of that he killed his wife. And everyone's shocked. What? And the laughter starts to stop. Some people you hear some people in the back going like, hey man, that's not funny. Like, you know, the audience starts going against him on this one. And he starts to tell the story about how he killed his wife. But what you find out is that what it was his wife was sleeping and he woke her up on the way out and she wanted to have sex. And he's like, oh, I didn't want to do that. So I tried to change the subject. So I tickled her feet. And so I tickled her feet and I tickled her to death. And that's supposed to be what the joke ends up being. But the crowd is completely against him by that point and they're mad, the whole thing.
But also because he is literal about the killing part. He then even acts as if he was crying that his wife is dead, and
the way he performs it's like he's on stage holding her dying in his arms and he's screaming and crying. Like, this is him actually getting the emotions out for killing his wife.
Yeah, he's,
for all intents and purposes, that's what it looks like, and everyone's a little shaken by that.
Yeah, so he's preparing himself mentally for
what comes after.
Yeah, so of course the audience couldn't care less. They hate him.
They don't really take it seriously.
No, they do, and they boo him.
Well, no, they boo him, but they don't think anymore beyond, oh, it's just a bad show.
Yeah, but they boo him, and that's where his career ends. Because
his career ends, and he goes ballistic on stage, starts screaming at people, swearing at them.
And then we have a montage of how her career is booming.
Mm-hmm.
Every performance is amazing.
She is just in such high demand.
All her shows are sold out and all his shows are canceled.
They're getting canceled. We see him on his motorcycle, again, his favorite thing, driving. He's like screaming in the night, like the top of his lungs in the middle of the California desert, just like driving on the highway in the middle of nowhere and just screaming so loud, so visceral. He is getting something out. So at long last, we now come to, I guess, what I feel like the moment we've been building up a bit. This is where the movie really divides. We get another Hollywood entertainment scene of them being like, oh, to get away from the stress of everything, they're going away on his yacht to fix their marriage or whatever. We get the song during that transition, which is the "A Storm is Coming," the one that I mentioned earlier. They have the "A storm is coming, a storm is coming." They're playing some crazy music. Literally, the yacht is in the middle of some crazy storm. Like huge waves, sideways rain, thunder, lightning, whatever. It's crazy. So we're inside the cabin with Anne, and she is there with Annette, and they're clearly trying to quickly establish something that she sings to the baby to calm it down. So Anne and Annette have this little moment, and so she goes outside to find Henry. Outside, you're seeing the full brunt of this storm. The boat looks like it's sideways. Where the hell is Henry? So we see, and another great visual metaphor that I'm going to do a callback to because we didn't bring it up the first time, they do this shot that's behind her where his hands are in the bottom left corner of the frame and they're creeping up like he's going to grab her on the shoulders. They did that once at the beginning of the film and it looks very creepy.
It looks
but it lands
creepy
on her and he just holds her sweetly and whatever. So now that we've seen how far he's fallen, we're seeing it again and it feels very different the second time. It feels creepy, but in a different way.
Well, the first time it was creepy, but then it's sweet.
Yeah,
Actually,
exactly.
I was wrong.
Oh, I was wrong.
I judged him. Now it's
Exactly.
like, I know he's creepy. I was right the first time.
Yeah. So the hand comes out, grabs her. It looks a lot more aggressive. And turn around, he's piss drunk. Like, so drunk, he can't drive this boat drunk. And she's like, oh my God, what the hell? I thought you were driving us through the storm. You're drunk. And he's like, I'm not drunk. I'm barely drunk. There's a thing he does a lot. And
yeah, and the scene is about how he keeps telling her, I'm not that drunk.
yes, so they share this song where she's pleading with him, like, what, trying
Please.
to talk some sense to him,
Yeah.
and he's just like, I'm not even drunk.
Yeah, so she's like, you're putting us in danger. And he's like, I'm not even that drunk.
I'm not even that drunk. Come dance with
Yeah.
me, waltz in the rain. Like he's having a meltdown.
Yeah, and she already sees that's it.
Yeah, she already has seen and has been convinced
Yeah.
of many things at this point. She's like, you know what? This isn't going to work out.
Yeah.
You can get that feeling that she's just so done with him.
Not even. I think, well, maybe you got that feeling. I got the feeling that she knew she was gonna die. Like, that's the feeling I got from it, that she felt powerless in the middle of the boat, being manhandled by a drunk dude.
At that point, yes.
Yeah.
I'm saying before he starts getting physical with her. Like when it's just trying to talk him down, she's like, oh my God, he's such an idiot. But then he
Yeah,
starts
okay.
getting really physical.
I guess, yeah, at first maybe it looks like she just wanna go.
Yeah,
She just wants to get back to the back. Yeah.
She just wants to get back to shore and be like, whatever, move on from this guy, whatever.
But then he won't let her go.
He won't let her go.
And then it seems like she knows that he's about to do something, so she falls out of the boat.
She literally falls off of the boat, and then you get his. I cannot emphasize how incredible this moment is, and they bring it back one other time. Is that he just sits there and falls to the ground? He's like, "There's nothing I can do." Mm-hmm. He literally is looking at her. She's screaming, "Oh, please come
Help
back! Pull me
me."
out of the water! Help!" There's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I can't go in after. What about Annette? Like he's immediately doesn't even think. He goes, "What excuses can I start making?" He's just completely in denial. He shuts down entirely.
That is something that, yeah, all these narcissists or sociopaths use. They really convince themselves that they're doing or not doing something wrong.
It's how they rationalize everything.
Yeah, they rationalize it. They're like, I did it because I had to, or they convince themselves that there's nothing they could have done.
Yeah, the consequences were out of my hands.
And I think that's how they keep themselves from feeling things, because they actually believe in their distorted reality.
Yeah, much like how our great that you said distorted reality, because like I mentioned earlier, it reveals to you that the movie, all that artifice, all the staginess, that is how Adam Driver sees the world.
Yeah.
That's how Henry McHenry interacts with the world. He thinks it's all a play.
Yeah.
It's all just it's all fake. What difference does it really make?
Doesn't.
It doesn't.
It only makes a difference when it serves or not serves him.
Mm-hmm. And that's how you really, at that point, that's how you really understand the depths of his, I guess, depression. And you're just kind of like, now the movie becomes about something else.
Sociopath.
Yep, because the whole thing happens with Anne. He gets interviewed by the police. He's completely in denial. Oh, there was a storm. The boat got shipwrecked, whatever. Out of my hands. The boat, who knows what happened?
Yeah, and another great example of how he uses Annette as his puppet is because he's like, I couldn't save her. I had to be
I had to be with Annette.
Yeah, like, I had to be with Annette. I couldn't do anything.
It's
but
his little
Annette,
excuse.
like, it's like, but you could have saved her. And he's like, but Annette.
But I had Annette.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
he uses her as a shield the entire
yeah,
song.
it's like, how
conversation.
can I prefer my wife to my daughter Annette? And it's like, oh, of course, you're fine.
Yeah.
Go
Well,
home.
'cause essentially-
we believe you now.
Because the thing is, he's trying to explain what happened because the yacht essentially shipwrecks. And he essentially has maybe a hallucination, we don't know, that his wife is going to haunt him forever. She's like, I'm going to haunt you. I am death now. And you piece of shit, I'm going to haunt you. I was once loved. Now I am death. And then he thinks Anne is singing, but it's actually Annette. And that's the first reveal to the audience.
I didn't notice that.
You didn't?
No, I thought it was Anne haunting him. But
No. Well, 'cause the thing is, what he says is, he looks at Annette and goes, "Was that you? No, that was Anne for sure." Like they do draw attention to it. Mm-hmm. But it is a misdirect. Intentionally, you're supposed to go, okay, well, whatever. It's a dream. It's a
I
hallucination.
guess,
Who
yeah, I
cares?
got misdirected because I just assumed Anne was singing and haunting him. And she does mention that she's going to haunt him through her daughter.
Yes, through my daughter, I will haunt you.
Yeah, but I still didn't notice Annette was singing. I thought it was Anne.
Well, I mean, Annette is a puppet and doesn't have an articulating mouth, so that's probably why you didn't notice
maybe,
it,
yeah.
right? The point being, the thing with the cops goes perfectly for him. He walks away scot-free. And so in order to kind of like keep up appearances, he's in isolation and doing the whole like, oh, I'm so sad about my wife. At this point, we're not sure if he's genuine or not. We're pretty sure he's not, but still at this point, the movie has been telling us he's a good guy. So he buys this like projector lamp for Annette, and it's like, it projects stars on the ceiling. So we're like, okay, well, he's getting her a gift, whatever. Turns on the lamp, and she starts singing. She starts singing exactly like she did when they were washed up on that hallucination he thought he half remembered. And he's just completely shocked. He's like, that voice is coming out of my child. And it's just Anne singing, essentially. But the baby can sing opera.
The baby can
The
sing.
baby can sing
A
opera.
baby.
So the gears start turning in his head. And the first thing he does, cut to, the accompanist is now a conductor. I am now a conductor. Everything worked out for me. Now I'm a conductor. Sorry, 1 second. The camera pans away. He's conducting the orchestra. Cuts back to him. Sorry for interrupting. I am still a It's one of my favorite songs. Made me laugh out loud because it's just like so silly. But you're like, this guy's coming back. And in this, in his scene conducting, he essentially tells you, me and Anne had a thing. We were together at one point, very briefly. And I'm suspicious that Henry guy killed her. And I'm going to find out the truth.
And also, it seems like he's implying that Annette might be his daughter.
He thinks that maybe Annette is his.
And I actually knew it. Because there's a really small, kind of fast scene at some point in which Henry looks at him from like a
from across the room,
distance, and I'm like,
yeah, they have the moment where like, you can see,
like,
you look at the conductor, and he's like, that's the look of a man who knows more than he's letting on.
yeah, and I was like, they definitely had sex.
Yeah, I know. So, anyways, yeah, we get that thing. He gets brought back into the story, so we're already like, uh-oh, something's gonna happen. He gets called by Henry and gets invited over. So then he's going there and he's like, man, he's singing. I'm suspicious of this whole encounter. What could possibly this be about? I don't know. And we're still kind of wondering what's the direction that this is going to go in. Henry invites him in, and it's another hilarious scene in which, so he's singing to the conductor and he's like, oh, hey there, friend, my conductor friend, my friend who's very seriously my friend who's a conductor, like doing the whole thing because they obviously don't know each other at all. But he calls him up, tries to be all chummy with him. And then he shows him Annette, and he's like, look at this ability. The conductor is in awe. He's like, oh my God, this is insane. And then so he starts going, I think we could tour, we could go around, we could do all these things. The first thing that the conductor says, he's like, it's your daughter. That's exploitation. He's like, no, don't worry about that. No, it's not. No. And he keeps saying it. That sounds like exploitation throughout the whole song.
But Henry says, it's our duty.
We have to show the world.
We have to show the world. The world has to see. Like, he uses this language of like,
we owe it to the world.
Yeah, it has to happen. We have to do it. Like, it's we cannot not do it. And it's like, wow, that's so manipulative.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. The whole song, the conductor is emphasizing, he's like, nah, that's exploitation. That sounds like
Yeah.
exploitation. So we're already being convinced the conductor is the best guy. He's the best boy.
I already knew it.
I mean, you already knew, but I'm saying for anyone else, you're like, they're leaning hard into making him like awesome dude. So you're like, well, at least he cares about the child. Then we get what is like more or less a montage of them touring with the baby. So it finds success. Everyone loves it, whatever. You know, the second coming of Anne's voice, you know, whatever they're doing to sell it, everyone's going. Everyone's loving it. The performances are going great. And we obviously, as this montage goes on, notice Henry's not really around. He's really finding a lot of excuses to break away and then go to strip clubs, or, hey, can you look after Annette again tonight, my conductor friend? He's like, yeah, okay, again, I have no problem.
Yeah, a couple of things happen before the montage. There is a split second that you think the conductor didn't take the job, but then you see him conducting the opera.
Yeah, they give you the impression he's walking away. I
Yeah,
guess.
you give them the expression, but it seems like, and that's how I felt it, that as soon as you see him conducting, you know he's there for Annette. You know he's there to protect her.
Yes.
He's not there because he believes in this, because you could clearly see he believes the opposite.
Well, that's right, because it shows
Yeah.
his face when the scene starts, and he does look like he's just like,
Yeah.
does not look
Yeah.
comfortable. He looks
So,
very uncomfortable.
Yeah. So, and then there's scenes in which, when they're surrounded by fans and paparazzis, Henry has Annette in his hands.
Yes, he's always carrying her under those circumstances.
However, in private, like in the plane or in the hotel room, is the conductor who has Annette in his arms.
Yep.
Meaning that, well, Henry just sees Annette as, again, a
Yes.
puppet, a thing.
Further to prove the point.
Yeah, but the conductor has true human emotions
He
towards.
genuinely cares
Yeah.
about it because, like you mentioned, he actually thinks that might be his daughter.
But being his daughter or not,
You're right.
he's a human.
He's just a good guy.
He's just a good guy. It doesn't matter. Even if this little baby was a stranger, he's protecting her and taking care of her, which any human must do with another baby.
Absolutely. So yeah, he's just emphasizing the qualities that we would want to see from a father. He's doing all of them. And then we get, which was, for me, the moment where I was like, I love this movie. And it was that during this montage of Henry always being away and whatever, we get a beautiful scene where the conductor, I mean, I also want to clarify, we keep calling him the conductor. That's actually his credited name in the thing. He doesn't actually have a name.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Howard Wolowitz.
The conductor is sitting with Annette in his lap, and he's playing We Love Each Other So Very Much. He's the one playing that love song. But the thing is, it's not just the same line over and over again. The song actually is now complex. It has different lyrics. It actually has more meaning now. He has added to the song. And what they're saying is that love from a really loving person becomes complex. And it's obviously represented very simply just through the song. But that was it. Well, in that moment, I was like, great. This movie's incredible.
It's true.
It is. I now believe it will pay off its things. They paid off one thing earlier. I know everything's going to pay off now.
I think I had faith in the movie 5 minutes in, but it's true. Like, I noticed that it had more lyrics, of course, but what you just said, it's so true. Like, because the simplicity of the song before, it's so
It makes it sound empty and vapid.
It's so empty. It's so, love is just loving each other.
We love each other so much. And it's like all the music is
the
going.
happy things.
That's what I mean. All the music's really going. This one is just the piano, one man singing to the child, because
that's love.
That
That's
was love.
genuine.
That was genuine. Exactly. You know, the baby being his daughter or not is immaterial. He is just expressing genuine love.
Yeah, for Anne and consequently,
Annette.
He just loves a being who could be his child or is just the child of the woman he loved.
Yeah, either way, he's happy being there for the child. And this becomes the point of contention, which leads to the next scene. Is that after all the whoring and boozing ends, Adam, Driver's character, finds out about this song because he comes home and sees Annette singing that song. And he just starts thinking about Anne. And he's like, oh my God, she was right. I am going to be haunted through this. It makes him all emotional. And then he confronts the conductor. He's like, what? So you showed her this song? You had no right to show her that song. He's like, whoa. And so it escalates. It's kind of a whisper fight because it's indoors. So they take it outside because the baby's trying to sleep. And he confronts him. He's like, how could you do that? Like, what? You have no right sharing my song with my daughter. Like, that was me and Anne's. And he's like, no, you asshole. I wrote that song for Anne.
It was our song.
That was our song. I wrote it. And you're like, oh, shit. And Henry, same thing. Oh, you son of a bitch. And he just starts getting in his face like, oh, yeah. So you guys were together. Well, that's cool. Yeah, well, let's just be calm about it. Let's go talk over here. And you're like, he's doing the same body language, that same kind of aggressive thing he was doing with Anne on the boat. And you're like, he's going to do something real bad.
Yeah, for a second there, I really thought the conductor was going to be smarter than Henry. But it seems that
I think it has more to do with him standing his ground than knowing the right thing.
I also think is that he's putting his life at risk because he knows that if he ends up getting out of this one alive, maybe something bad will happen to Annette.
That's what I mean. He's standing his ground because he's like, I'm going to protect this child. I'm not afraid of you.
Yeah.
So he tries to stand up to him in his own kind of way, which he does.
Yeah.
And so Adam drowns him in a swimming pool.
Yeah.
That's like the full spiral out of control comes to fruition by that point. He's just unhinged. He's all like all gross, and Annette sees it all happen from the window.
But you know what I noticed, and maybe this is a stretch.
What?
Or my female eyes looking at this scene, and I really liked it actually. Mm-hmm. That when the same thing happened with Anne, she looked impotent.
Like helpless.
First of all, she's in a boat in the middle of nowhere. There's no way. He's either going to stab her or throw her out of her boat. She's going to be dead. Like,
she needed him to turn the boat around.
For her, there was no way out.
Mm-hmm.
For the conductor, I feel that there were many times, not even once or twice, several times in which he escaped from the arms of Henry. He could have easily run.
Yep.
He could have easily survived. He was stronger than Anne. He's smaller than Henry, but still a guy. Still, he had many, many moments in which he could have just run away.
He could have.
But he didn't because in this scenario, he chose not to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just liked that. Yeah, I really liked how they portrayed how helpless the woman was in this scenario and how men, more often than not, have a better chance to escape from this type of confrontations. Mm-hmm. And it kind of seems to me, I might be wrong, that if it escalates, it's often because the guy decided to be the hero.
Mm-hmm. It's true. That's why they use the phrase "don't be a hero."
It's not about that he couldn't. It's about he was trying to be the hero, and that's why he died.
I know, exactly. So exactly, the danger for men is the problem of escalation, and the danger for women is helplessness.
Helplessness, yeah. And like I do believe that, unfortunately, physical advantage of men towards women, it's a thing, and that's why it's so important to, I don't know, try to I don't know, maybe this is a stretch.
No, I honestly think you're not wrong in saying the movie's at least trying to address it in some way. I'm not like I don't think it's that the movie's about that or anything like that.
Yeah,
But
that's
the
why I
movie's
said it's a stretch.
No,
Yeah.
but the movie is very much about this type of person and these type of relationships. So I don't think that's a stretch at all. I think that kind of comes with the territory of this movie and the themes that it talks about, because it's about the interaction between the men and the women. Because it's a hetero relationship, right? So those things are probably in there. It's written by two, like 60-year-old men. I'm sure that's in there because they've witnessed these things, and they're a lot smarter than I think a lot of people give them credit for. Those two guys they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I think that the Sparks brothers are a good example of, I guess they're boomers, right?
Yeah.
I think they're an amazing example of the type of boomers who viewed the world in a different way, and they try to make it better, and they actually knew about these societal issues.
Right. Well, because like when you're a progressive individual, you're progressive your whole life. It's not like you suddenly decided to be progressive.
Exactly.
So, and with their music, they've always been ahead of the times. So why not? It's not hard to believe that they themselves, as thinkers, are ahead of the times. They're more accepting, and they seem that way from the documentary.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's definitely not a stretch. It's just another layer of the type of conflicts of the movie.
Yes. And so that then goes into the, I guess, sad ending of the film, which is that Henry's response to killing the conductor is, last show, that's it. No more shows, no more touring. We're going to go away and live a happy family. I care so much about my daughter, and she's got to go to school and grow up and be a normal kid.
Move to Europe before they catch me.
Move to Europe before they catch me. Yeah, exactly. So he wants to do a farewell concert to get a bunch of cash so they can, I'm sure, go buy some nice house wherever they end up, because, he's a loser and no one cares about him anymore. And it's the big final performance in a giant stadium, completely sold out. Everyone's watching. They cue up the music. The announcer's all excited. Oh, baby Annette. Oh, my God. And she won't sing.
She won't sing.
She won't sing. He's like, oh, well, this was my favorite, like, back-to-back line of irony was when he's like, well, folks, I'm sorry, but she is, in fact, a baby. Then he turns away from the mic and goes, this stupid bitch, why the fuck isn't she singing? And you're like, oh my God, this soulless fucking producer. Like, again, another quick little jab the Sparks throw in, because I'm sure they've dealt with producers like that who will say one thing to your face, but then be, behind your back on the other. So that was kind of funny. They try to cue up the music again. She doesn't start. They try to cue up the music again. And then it goes to Adam Driver, and we're just looking at him now, and he just looks like,
I think he knows what's coming.
He knows what's coming, and he has a look on his face that's, I would say, kind of like solemn despair, if you know what I mean. Like, he's resigned to the fact that he's about to lose, but he almost seems pleased by it. He's kind of like, yep, I got beat. And he just kind of seems, he just accepts it. There's no fight left in him. And so what happens is they cue up the music again, and instead of singing, Annette just says,
Daddy kills people.
My daddy killed people. And then the investigation comes back. It's this big whirlwind, another montage of everything kind of quickly being swept up and whatever. He gets sent to jail, gets prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. There's no quarter for him, and he's sent directly to jail. And the final scene in this movie is a long one, which is why I guess it feels like we're maybe skipping over what might be in between the conductor dying in this, but there's not really
much.
There's not really a lot.
Mostly montages.
Lots of music, lots of montaging, that kind of stuff. But we get to the final scene, and so it's Annette coming to see Henry in jail, and he looks horrible. He's had this mark that's been growing on his face. There's a visual metaphor for him being tainted. It's like a weird birthmark that starts on his
I didn't
jaw.
know that.
At this point, it's like a full thing on his face. So you see him. He's got the weird mark on his face. It's kind of consumed half of his cheek. He's got really short hair. He just looks tired and
skinny.
Like, he looks gross. So this is the big thing. The entire movie, there's always been a way to explain that Annette is a puppet and everything's fake. She's never walking on her own. Like it plays within the limitations of it being a puppet. So the interesting thing is the scene starts and Annette is being carried into a visiting room to talk to Henry. And you're like, yep, it's the puppet, whatever. It's got the monkey. They put it down in the chair. It just sits there. It's just a puppet. And then Adam Driver looks at the puppet and like starts like a weird preamble. He's kind of singing a bit. It seems like chit chat. And then the puppet talks and says, "You can't love me, Daddy." And he says, "Well, why can't I love you?" And it cuts back to the puppet. And then we actually see the little girl that looks exactly like this puppet. Like she has red hair. She's wearing the same clothes. So we see what I would assume
Annette.
is the real Annette.
No, so it's the real Annette.
So, you know, but then she walks up, touches the puppet. Now it's her in the chair.
Yeah.
And then the scene just plays out. The rest of the movie plays out now like an actual normal movie. They just talk. And then they have a little sing-song back and forth where it's him being like, "Why can't I love you? Why won't you let me love you?" And her refuting everything, being like, "No, I can't. I blame you. I blame Mom. You guys birthed me into this cruel world. I can't forgive you for the way you treated each other. I can't forgive you for the way you treated me." You know, it's the whole back and forth. It's her finally throwing everything he did back in his face. Everything he did, she confronts him with. And then by the end, when she's like, "But why can't I love you?" And she's like, "You can't. You don't know how."
Well, she doesn't say
She
that,
doesn't
but
say,
it implies.
the point is that she's saying he doesn't know how to love her.
Yes, and back to sociopaths. Not that we are
Obsessed with
psychologists.
sociopaths.
We're mostly obsessed with true crime. I feel that these type of people who have no feelings or soul, they confuse love with how much the person serves them.
Yeah, how much they can do for them.
So, of course, Annette served him in many ways. First, to control Anne, to feel like a big deal.
Yeah, like,
even.
Yeah, that was his way.
Yeah.
It was his puppet, or you know, the means of controlling people around him was her.
And then being famous again with baby Annette singing. And it's amazing how this girl knows that he cannot physically love her because she knows, she's kind of like telling him, "You're not gonna use me anymore.
Yeah.
You cannot love me because I'm not gonna let you use me. You want to love me to use me, but you cannot love me." And it's so beautiful, so beautiful.
And I will also just say, just for perspective, Annette's not a baby. She looks like she's maybe 3 or 4. But I think it also just speaks to how he sees her. She's his baby puppet. You know, like, it doesn't matter that the puppet always looked the same. It was a puppet. When you actually get to see what she looks like, she's just a normal, like, 3-year-old girl. She's very articulate for a 3-year-old, too. Obviously, her mom was an opera singer. She was very smart. Like, everyone around her gave her all this knowledge, and she obviously was forced to grow up fast because of being a baby, quote-unquote, baby opera singer. But, yeah, that little girl in that scene I was very impressed by her as well. Just really nailing the timing on all those songs, just as a fun little aside. But yeah, it really hits home the message. And it really, really hits home, I guess, the final statement of the movie. Like, everything comes full circle when you see that. You know, if you took the visual metaphor as it was, like you saw that he gave birth to a puppet, and you say, "Oh, it's about how parents see their kids as puppets." Maybe that's what the statement is. But getting to that point, you're like, the whole movie is from Henry's perspective.
I don't know. I kind of, well, maybe it's only me that I instantly knew what the puppet represented. I never thought it's like, oh, it's only generally speaking parents. No, as soon as I saw the puppet, I'm like, this guy is a manipulative piece of shit. And he's going to use his own baby for something. That's how I saw it.
Well, I know. They tell you that later. What I'm saying is this is all based on what you first see. You're like,
yeah, and as I first saw it, I knew that. They didn't have to tell me.
Yeah. I mean, and it doesn't take long for the movie to confirm it or anything like that. But that's what I mean. If there were any doubts, that is where you go, no, this movie is about that, and I can prove it to you. There's the evidence.
And another thing that I really liked, but it's really hard for me to pinpoint my interpretation of what it meant, was how Annette said that she also blamed her mom.
Mm-hmm.
And Henry says, don't blame your mom. But she kept repeated, like, I'm blaming her and I'm blaming you.
Yep.
She never only blamed her mom. She always blamed them both or him.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, from the perspective of a child, I do see her point, because she chose to be with this guy.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that I agree
Yes.
with you.
She chose not to hear the cryings of the other woman.
Yeah, the other women,
Yeah.
her friends, she didn't listen to
Yeah.
what everyone was telling
Yeah,
her.
she chose to not be with the
Conductor.
conductor.
Oh, because he mentions like a week before Anne met Henry was when they had their whole affair.
Yeah.
So he's like, if only I had pushed harder. If only
Yeah.
I'd convinced her.
But that's the thing, it's like, it is really hard, because in my perspective, Anne definitely was the victim of a manipulator.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's always about context. And I think in this context, Anne had the higher ground.
Mm-hmm.
She was always the more popular one, the one that had more success, the smarter one.
Mm-hmm.
She always had the higher ground. So it seems like her only reason to choose this guy was, I don't know, passion?
Yeah, maybe. He's just
Yeah.
sexy. He has all the sexy muscles in the opening.
Yeah,
He-
because that is a kind of like the contrast between him and the conductor.
Yes.
So
You're
I
right.
kind of feel that it is a metaphor to life, that although, yeah, when you come near this type of people that manipulate people and you fall in their claws,
Mm-hmm.
yes, to an extent it's not your fault, but at the same time, life will teach you better. Like, definitely after you fall once or twice or 3 times in these type of scenarios, something that has happened to me,
Mm-hmm.
you look back to yourself and your decisions. Sometimes it's even plain ego
Yeah.
that makes you want to stay with those people. It's just the idea of being wrong is so painful. Like, I cannot be wrong about my own judgment.
Right. Well, exactly, because it's very personal. It's how could I be so wrong of the person that I think I'm in love with, and all those things.
So, like, how can I be? I'm not stupid. I'm smart. So therefore, I'm not stupid enough to fall into
What everyone else is saying.
or like into their tricks. I'm
Yeah.
smart. I cannot be manipulated.
Yeah, I would see it. Would you? You guys
Yeah.
don't know. You
Yeah.
you guys are projecting your shit.
Yeah, so I kind of feel that I have been in that situation. I have seen many friends, women and men,
Mm-hmm.
being in those type of relationships, and it always goes back to ego.
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes, yes, they are absolutely horrible.
Yes.
They're awful human beings that deserve no sympathy, in my own personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
However, sometimes, not all times, you're also part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that you don't have enough self-esteem, or it's your ego, or many other reasons why you...
Yeah, there could be like
Yeah.
financial reasons,
Financially.
whatever. There's your only safety net.
Yeah.
Like, there are millions and millions of variables.
Many variables. And sometimes, I think in this scenario, in this example, the variable was more ego
Yeah.
and being with a cute guy,
Mm-hmm.
with the charismatic guy,
Yeah, look good for the papers.
that instead of financial security or having where to
Someone who's dependable.
Yeah, so like, of course, if you have no money, no job, and you're in an abusive relationship, you have kids, totally different scenario.
Yeah.
Most, like, I would say you're not at fault.
Yeah.
However, in this scenario, I can clearly see how Annette was blaming her mom as well.
Because to your point, she had all the power in the
Yes.
relationship. Why didn't she just leave you and
Yeah.
your jerk ass?
And she did mention that, like, a queen should never be a moth that is attracted to a flame.
Yeah, a moth drawn to a flame.
Uh-huh.
And the girls that come out against them use the same phrase.
Yeah.
They go, we were all moths drawn to a flame.
Mm-hmm.
So it just speaks to his ability to entice people.
Entice people, burn people, cause harm.
All that thing.
Yes. So, very interesting. I really like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I also want to bring up the final shot in the film, which is the marionette just like lying on the floor in the jail room. So this is where we get into my fun theory territory. So there's this thing that his character says a lot about Anne, which is that she dies on the stage for them. She dies for them every night. Literally what he means is her character dies at the end of the show every single time. But metaphorically speaking, what he means is she gives everything to her art. And there's the part where he says she dies for them on stage every night. But will she die for me? Now she dies for no one because she gets killed, right? So what I think they're trying to say is now the puppet has died, the creativity of his daughter is dead. Because to him, the creativity and the creative output is dying on stage. That is honorable. Like, oh my God, dying on stage like that. That's what makes him jealous of Anne, right? So now, if that puppet is dead, to him, he's seeing that she has now that his puppet, his daughter, is now dead. The creativity is dead. It is gone.
Well, that's why she does say that in this song.
She
at
does.
The end.
She says,
She's
I'm
like,
never again.
Yeah, I'm never singing again. He's like, no, you cannot do that because that's the only use for him. It's his daughter singing.
But also, it's his only use to him, but it's also the only thing that he measured himself against was his creative output.
And even like to stroke their ego. Because
totally.
even if he's in jail and she keeps singing, he will stroke his ego like, that's
See,
my daughter.
I was right. She's still doing it. I knew she couldn't turn away.
Like, even if she's not helping him in any way, he will like find a way to make it about him.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what she wants to avoid. She's like, I'm not giving you anything anymore.
Yeah.
You can't love me because the only way that you love me is when I'm giving you what you want. And I'm not going to be part of this anymore. And then we have the last shot of it being dead on the ground.
Yeah, it was really a good movie and the actors were amazing.
This is like an incredible whirlwind of performances. Adam Driver is giving it his all. He is so good. Marion is so good too. Like, they're all singing too. It's their voices. That was really fun too, to actually not just hear some random other person's voice coming out of them. It was just a great production. The movie's 2 hours and 20 minutes. It is a full musical length. So like, and it's just like one thing after another. And the thing is, even though we've really spoiled so much of this movie, like we said, all those little in-betweens, there's all the different music. There's so much going on at every given second.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, well, first of all, we spoil every movie.
What do you mean we do?
But this is like the best movie that even spoiled.
Because it spoils itself at the beginning.
Yeah, like even spoiled, you should go and watch it.
Yeah, because
like,
you're never going to see something like this.
Yeah.
This is very unique.
It's like if someone told you the entire plot of Hamilton that you might even know because it's American history.
Right.
You still will go and watch Hamilton.
To see the rapping, the dancing, the way it intersects. Like, that's the whole point.
So I think you should watch this movie like as the artistic piece, amazing artistic piece that it is, because it's great.
It is so good.
Yeah, but why is Adam Driver always doing like so
Indie
like
darling Adam Driver?
like why is he always doing these parts that he's so emotional and so emo and like dark?
It's because Adam Driver actually is an actor who cares about expressing human emotion on stage. Like, I've seen him in interviews. He's very literally like a technical actor where he's like, well, I studied all these methods. I know these methods. Here's how they all apply. Like, he is a thinking actor. He is
He's
not an emotional
amazing.
actor. He's so good.
He's amazing. He's the only thing I cared about in the sequels of Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Like the only thing, like Kylo Ren, like thank you.
I know. I'm on
A
Team Kylo.
blessing. Everything else about those movies sucked. But I haven't seen any other of his movies, but I have seen like memes about him, and like all the memes are always from dramatic scenes. So it seems like to me that he's always doing all these dramatic characters.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, because he's like the thinking actor. That's what those kinds of actors like. They're like, what's something that technically is hard to perform? I want to do those.
And for Simon, I love him. I loved him since.
Yeah, he's so great.
I love him. He's like, I know I haven't seen him in many things, but I used to love the Big Bang Theory until everyone ruined it for me and explained to me why it was bad.
And then you could never see anything
and then
ever
I
again.
could never unsee what I have been explained, and I'm like, oh my god, this is an actual like not.
This is terrible.
This is terrible, but I had like emotional connection to all the characters, especially Howard Wolowitz.
Yeah. Which is great to see him like acting in something
It's
as great as
amazing.
this.
I already knew he was an amazing actor. I don't know why. I guess I'm really, really good at reading people. It seems like it, because it always comes to I'm either a clairvoyant and can see the future, or I'm just good at reading people. So when I was like,
it's probably the clairvoyancy.
Yeah, definitely. I have a third eye and everything. But that's the thing. When I was like 11, 12 years old watching The Big Bang Theory, and I will look at this actor, I'm like, he's amazing. Like, I was like, so impressed by him, and I was so happy to see him doing like some other roles that I haven't even seen his movies.
Right.
Now I think I will, because I always wanted to, only because of him, because I love him so much. When I saw him in this movie, I didn't even knew he was in this movie.
Yeah, me neither.
I was gonna like, I wanted to scream like a fangirl.
No, you did. You're like, oh my god, you're like, oh, it's Howard.
Yeah,
in that intro when he walks out with the drumsticks, you're like, oh my god, it's Howard.
I just like, I don't know. I think I have a crush on him. I just love him so much, and I also love Adam Driver so much. So this movie was so good, also because I had two actors that I just have like so much respect towards.
I would say this is probably the best adaptation of a stage musical I've ever seen. Like, in the sense that it incorporates both of those artistic worlds very, very well.
Yeah.
In a way that you kind of get a bit of the staginess. You get it through the movie. But then also, because it's a movie, they do a lot of fun things with that. You know, it's surreal. Nothing really makes sense. Just like in a play. It's like, the continuity is not as important as it is getting the emotions and the feeling of everything across. That's what plays excel at. They know we're not in a building. We're on a stage. So they kind of use that to their advantage. You expect something, and they just know how to keep you interested.
Yeah.
Like, truly incredible. And I highly recommend everyone go see it, because it's on Amazon Video. It's an Amazon original movie, whatever. You have no excuse.
And you know, this week we had a discussion with Chewy about how I will never like movies.
Yeah.
And how I'll never enjoy watching movies.
That's right.
And I even said to him that he just should accept it. And he said, I think it will change.
I do.
And it's so weird, and I don't know why, but this movie and another movie we watched this week that we're going to talk about later. And so many other great movies we have been watching lately. It's starting to give me hope to the idea of me actually being excited about watching movies.
Well, this is news to me, guys.
Yeah,
you heard it here first, same as me. Oh boy.
It's news because we literally like had a talk about it, and I was like, no, just that idea should die. I'm
so happy to hear that.
Yeah, like you should like stop thinking I will like it. I don't. I'm just doing it because like I want to spend time with you, and we should talk in the podcast, right? So, but like this movie kind of like it's just that
you're seeing what cinema can actually do.
But that's the thing. I actually even remember saying that to one of my coworkers, was that I don't watch movies because I don't want to waste 2 hours of my time. So I only watch them when I trust the opinion of a person.
Right. Yeah.
So,
you get a recommendation.
Yeah. So if someone tells me you should watch Transformers, they're great movies. Like,
You sound like me now.
that's the thing is like, but because I know how bad they are, because unfortunately I have to watch them.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is like, it's not about what you like and you dislikes. We all also have like moments of we just like something trashy.
Yeah, no, everyone has like their
Yeah.
what you might call the shameful secret.
Exactly. Like I watch drama channels on YouTube.
Yep, you like your trash.
Yeah, maybe you want Fast and Furious and Transformers.
Oh, that is definitely my trash movie is Fast and Furious.
Exactly. So, and you might say you love them, meaning that they bring you joy. You don't have to think. You don't have to analyze anything.
All flaws aside, it's
Yeah.
just you're just like, oh, I know it's dumb. I want that's the
Yeah.
kind of dumb I want to see.
Exactly. So it's not about judging people's like likes and dislikes. You could be the smartest person on earth and like a movie that I consider painful to watch. But that's the thing. I need to make sure this person's views of movies align with what I think is good.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate enough that Chewy has the same alignment. Because so far, I think we have agreed on everything.
Except for No Sudden Move.
Except for that awful movie called No Sudden Moves.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I'm lucky to be watching good movies. Definitely, I guess. Is this an indie movie?
It was made for $15 million.
15, that's a low, right?
That's extremely low.
Okay, so yeah.
By today's standards, that is low.
Yeah, I guess I prefer those movies. I prefer movies that have a heart and a soul behind them.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
These movies, these $20 million movies, this is what the future is going to be for them. Because I was saying to you, we had this conversation. I was talking about, or you asked me, you're like, well, why do they not make those movies anymore? How come, why are these budgets so, out of control and whatever? And it was because with your $20 million movie, you would get DVD sales. No one buys DVDs anymore. You stream everything, right? So it's looking to me like the new home for these $20 million movies is going to be on your Amazons, your Netflixes, your whatever. The only thing is, I am just very, very suspicious and very apprehensive that they are going to maintain that artistic integrity once the money starts really, really, really piling up.
Well, but in Mitchell's versus the Machines, those two directors, they are popular, right?
Well,
and they still make
but the thing
good
is,
things.
they are the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
They absolutely are. And Mitchell's versus the Machines wasn't made for $15 million.
But there you go. The reason why my disdain towards movies in general happened very early in my life. I was traumatized by many bad movies.
Yeah.
And I was blessed with YouTube in which there's so many content that it's made out of heart and soul and people that are genuine. Something that I haven't found in Hollywood yet. Because
I would say lately, it definitely has not been there.
yeah, lately. But when I was young, I was too young.
Yeah.
I was too young to watch those 80 movies or
Yeah,
those
totally.
like interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you were in the middle ground. You were too
Yeah.
young to watch the era where cinema was super experimental
Yeah.
and always trying new things.
Yeah.
Instead, you grew up in the era where everything was trying to be more the same.
Yeah. So I always hated watching movies and nobody ever understood why. And now I can actually explain it because, well, I'm an adult now. I know words and I know reason. My reason is that, I didn't want to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Like I don't even like, for example, I don't even like Harry Potter and I have seen them all. And I find it silly how people are so in love with those movies. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that the movie we watched today, for me, is so much better. Even Censor is so much better. Minari.
Oh, yeah.
So much better than fucking wizards having drama in their school, Like I know it's way more than that, but like that's the thing is like it was such a disappointment to see that between my peers, the type of movies who were popular and loved, in my opinion, were boring movies. So I just gave up. And now that I'm an adult, I can actually, thanks to you, find all these amazing films and kind of like have hope that maybe I like watching movies. I just have had really bad experiences.
That's really nice of you to say. That's my hope for everybody. The least I can do is try to get everybody to maybe open their minds a bit and just watch something they might not necessarily have given it a second chance.
Yeah.
Like, you mentioned, the era, Harry Potter, whatever. All I would say to that is you just didn't know that the cinema you wanted to see
yes, existed.
was somewhere else.
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, I feel like that's a pretty nice way to end this.
A really long episode, it seems.
Loved this movie, though. Highly recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, me too.
Please go see it.
And with that being said, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel.
Smash that like button.
Yeah. Ring the bell.
Ring the bell.
Please, that will help us a lot so we can pay our respects to the algorithm.
Yeah, the almighty algorithm.
Yeah. And that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Let's go eat dinner.